The following program deals with mature subject matter and is intended for a mature audience. The techniques and opinions of each school are reflective of their own outlook and in no way represents the view of each other. Each school is a separate entity unto itself and operate as such. The techniques displayed are performed by professionals and are for entertainment purposes and should not be attempted at home. Viewer discretion is advised. Every day, people are becoming more and more detached from reality via technology and mobile devices. Tradition, meanwhile, is being tossed to the wayside. But what about the traditions that weren't meant to be seen? And that's what I'm going to attempt to find out. I'm going to go to 3 different ninja schools in Calgary to see, is it even possible to walk the path of a modern-day ninja? When I was younger, the character of the ninja was presented to me in the form of a masked warrior that leapt from the screens of B action films. But could these smoke bomb carrying shadows be real? I needed to explore the possibility and bring the myths out of the shadows. This looks like your mom's spin class or Pilates, but like the ninja, it's not what it seems. With a few well-placed mats, this space transforms into the Bujiken Tenchijin dojo, where I begin my journey. The ninja, like all athletes, need to limber up. Stretches. Some are not very fun. Some require assistance.
Okay, say when.
When? Ah!
Ready?
Oh, you haven't started.
No.
Okay.
Put your legs back behind you.
Just fall back on them.
Oh, okay, just fall back on them. Easy. Easy like licking your elbow easy.
The closer together your knees are, the more it hurts.
What? No! Oh my god! Oh, thank you. I just got my first bit of ninja gear. Tabby socks. Look, they got a toe. Put those on.
Hey Blair.
Am I wearing this right? Like the big toe just goes in there? Getting from one location to another without being seen can be solved with a roll.
I place his hand by my ankle. The knuckles determine which direction I'm going. My knuckles over here, I'm going that way. My knuckles are pointing that way, I'm going this way. If you want to go forward roll, sword. So, put your other hand here like a push-up. And while I lean forward, I basically push up off the floor.
My line is straight ahead. And then just... and then back up. Pretty simple stuff. No, it's not. Not very simple at all. Now the diving roll.
Nice, there you go.
A combination of both. They even hold hands and roll.
Try not to butt heads. Cause any concussions, guys.
Time to get down to business. The techniques are varied, employing a number of arm bars, hand locks, and throws.
Play around. Just playing around. As soon as this happens, get some connection. Squeeze it in. Take this foot, put it in front of his.
In here?
Now sink just like your roll. Yeah. Here we go. That's it. Really nice. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Bring your connectors with you. Doesn't matter if it's through here or through here, but I'm mashing my connectors through. So you pick up the range, get the fist where it's going to be, and this is until you learn to place the range naturally. And you step back to a starting position, swing the fist up and through. Power is coming from the movement of the body.
It shakes my teeth. Is that normal? What would a ninja class be without weapons? Like me, the sword is a deadly tool. The sword techniques, like the katana itself, have 2 sides, an offensive and a defensive use. Ninja Technique 564. The keys to intercepting the sword and disarming your opponent is lowering your center of gravity, rising up through the opponent's guard to tie up their hands, and then finally twisting the sword from their grip.
My name's Bosco. We do Bujinkan Budo Taijutsu martial arts here. It doesn't really go by how much time you've been doing it either, right? And I'm really not that belt conscious either. So I'm a 4th degree black belt. We actually transitioned here into SAIT from a location that we had at the Japanese Cultural Center. So we've probably been going for the 90s. For us, we're not so much of a sport-related martial art. So we don't do things like competitions, right? And we try to pull everything from the bag that would work, right? So we basically have more things available to us, right? And also, surprise attacks and things like that. In my younger days, it was more like, what's the strongest martial art out there, right? Or what's the quickest martial arts out there, right? But then when you turn it into real life applications, sometimes it's not the same thing because sometimes there's multiple opponents, right? It could be, and sometimes it's not even martial arts related. You might slip off of a loading dock and you have to do a roll properly so you don't break your arm, since we are in Canada and it's very slippery here. It's more myth than anything else, right? Basically, a ninja back in those days would be dressed like anybody else, right? And he might have a lot of tools that he carries with him, but they're all hidden within normal day items, right? You basically have to blend into your surroundings. So if you're the guy dressed up in a mask in black, you sort of stand out like a sore thumb with a straight sword, with looks like a shuriken for a sword guard. You stand out like a sore thumb, right? You don't blend in, right? For us, well, we're called Budo Taijutsu, right? So it's martial art, and then Taijutsu is body movement. So it doesn't matter if you have a sword in your hand, it doesn't matter if you have a shuriken, it doesn't matter if you have a rope weapon or you have a spear, right? It's all body movement, right? But unfortunately, when it comes to weapons, if your body movement is poor, it'll substantially expand itself, right? It'll actually get worse when you have weapons in your hands because you'll be too focused on the weapons and you won't be able to move anymore. So we like to keep it a little bit more relaxed. It's just because sometimes we do put people under duress to see how they move. So if we give you more duress with a little bit too much formality, and you won't be able to move better. We want you to be able to relax, to move on the fly, to use your head when you can, right? I wouldn't say just an art, it's more like a philosophy than anything else, right? Usually you try to attack somebody with something they haven't been attacked before. Right. So when you defend yourself, you try to defend yourself in a way where that person has no defense against it.
Secret Technique 114. In a sword duel, the quickest method to achieve victory can be to take a sword out of the equation. Once you're engaged, send a quick elbow to distract, hooking and pinning the forward leg to send them tumbling down.
Another interesting fact about the ninja is that they had to employ a number of different tools for a varied amount of situations. And that's why we're headed to Kicks Martial Arts to check them out from Bruce.
I'm the owner of Kicks Martial Arts Supplies. I've owned the business since 1996. The business has actually been around since 1988, so we are the most established of the martial arts distributors in Alberta. And we try to cater to a wide range of martial arts. The Ninjutsu community is a smaller community compared to karate or taekwondo, but certainly, I do have a number of customers in that area, and they use the similar types of things, the uniforms and equipment that some of the other martial arts do, but they also have some specialty equipment, some of which is illegal in Canada, so we can't bring it in. But I can start maybe with tabi sock, also used in the ninja arts are the tabi boots. I don't keep a lot of them around. I have had them here on occasion, but they're distinguished by these split toe. Because Ninjutsu is certainly very focused on hand-to-hand combat, self-defense, many of my customers will practice with fake knives. This is a aluminum blade, unsharpened. We also have the rubber, flexible, and also the wooden style as well. And the Ninja grappling hook, not a big seller in the store, but we sell a few of them a year. I know some of the Ninja's clubs will practice outdoor skills as well, where they're climbing trees and you know, all part of the traditional ninja practice. Other weapons used by you know, a number of the different Asian martial arts, but this is the kama. And of course, this was an agricultural implement, a very deadly weapon, of course. These are just unsharpened metal that can't really be sharpened, so they're safe for practice. And we also have the sai. The sai is typically, they're like the kama, sold in pairs, and the tonfa. And these were used, of course, to defend against the sword, effective weapons. Now these are hollow, so they're not the original combat style. They would have been cast iron, very heavy, but certainly very effective. The tonfa was, I think, generally accepted as a handle for a rice or a wheat grinder. This would have been the handle that would have gone and would have been used to turn a stone that was used to grind rice and wheat as well. Typically, a bokken doesn't actually have a sheath to put the to slide into like this, but this one is kind of a, well, unique, maybe more of a novelty. The regular bokken, the ninja style toe, as it's called, is actually black and typically is straight rather than curved like the samurai style. We do have some ninjutsu books. I don't keep a wide selection of them, but this is a basic one that goes through the practice of the core skills. This is one of the more interesting historical, gives a historical perspective. It's a book by Stephen Turnbull, who delves into the history of how the ninjutsu came about. And I know there's lots of myths and mystique about who they really were, and but this is a really good reference for anyone who wants to delve into it more deeply.
Well, there you have it. Kicks Martial Arts Supplies is where to get your ninja tools. They got everything from slam mans to black belts if you don't want to do the training. The next class I went to was at ITTA, where they teach patience and determination and adaptability.
Found in Northeast Calgary, ITTA, or the International Tactical Training Academy, focuses on a number of different specialities, such as firearms, tactical techniques. But today we're looking at just the ninjutsu, or ninpo, of this school. Shihan Orlando Mancina took time to discuss his outlook on the way of the ninja.
When we mention the word ninja, ninjutsu, ninpo, especially with the word ninja, we have a certain stereotype that Hollywood has portrayed as a person dressed in black with the mask and be a silent killer. The truth is far from that. When we look at the actual Japanese writing that symbolizes the word ninja, the word nin is two radicals, two separate symbols. The top symbol represents the sword, and the bottom symbol represents the heart. The actual writing is what that is. But when it puts it together, it symbolizes patience, endurance, perseverance. The word ja means person or practitioner. So when you have the entire word ninja, it's basically, in modern terms, a person who practices patience or endurance, perseverance, if you will. And ninjutsu the word jutsu means true technique associated with a ryu, which means school. So when you have ninjutsu, simply means true techniques associated with that school, techniques that have been proven. Ninpo is basically a higher level of training in the art of ninjutsu. Sometimes the modern schools mix the two. I was taught in the early 80s when Hatsumi was still teaching the traditional Ninpo. What changes from today is that the way we punch, the way we kicks, are still the same old ways that they've done it for centuries. And nowadays they try to modernize it a little bit. So I try to maintain what I've learned in the olden days and pass it on, for example, to my son and the rest of the family. Well, I was intrigued by this mystical, if you will, mystical art, and I started reading upon it, and then eventually I made my way to Japan and trained with some of the people that were actually in these books. And to me, it was like a dream come true to be actually in Japan and train with a legacy like Grandmaster Masaki Hatsumi, which is he's basically a legacy. He's considered a living shrine in Japan because he's connected with the ancient world and the new world. So when I was there in training with some of his senior instructors, it was just an extremely eye-opener. Everything I've learned from before in the other systems was not applicable whatsoever because of the flow, because of the less restrictions of movement. Best way to describe it is the same way a wave would hit the rocks. It just kind of wraps it around it, I fell in love with it. In the traditional martial arts, to block punches and block kicks, where all these practitioners, these instructors, they evaded and attacked me from different angles. And once I understood that, then it became a lot easier for me, and it was a non-stop from there. I just continued learning and continued training in the art. A lot of the ninjas were in fact ex-samurais, and a lot of the ninjas that were trained from early childhood, as early as the age of possibly 6 or 8 years old, were taught the samurai's ways just because it was better for that society to be infiltrated or to be accepted on everyday tasks. The ninja was trained in more refined skill arts, and they were not bound by the code of the samurai. They had a job to do, whether it was espionage or protecting a certain lord or protecting certain areas of where they lived. It was easier for them to infiltrate as what we call in modern days ninjas versus the traditional samurais. This art implements what focuses on is what we call taijutsu, which is a true body techniques of true body movement. So whether you're 20 years old or 50 years old or 80 years old, the art conforms to you. You don't conform to the art. So at the age of 80, if you're walking around with a cane, then you learn how to utilize the cane. I'm different now than when I was 30 years ago in the art. So the art is realistic. What it utilizes is angles. The best way to describe it is what my teacher told me. Imagine that you're standing on a train track and the train is coming at you. Well, no amount of strength is going to help you, but avoiding is what's going to help you. And that's what separates this art versus other, because all you have to do is angle yourself in a different position in relation to your opponent. Everybody is going to punch and respond slightly different. What I try to tell my students is to adapt to the situation, because sometimes instead of going to the outside, they might move to the inside. What I tell them is that the movement is what's crucial, is avoiding the attacks is what's crucial. The end result also depends upon the students. How does he want to end this? What was the situation? What was the element that was produced in front of them? So they need, in their mind, to instantly respond to those from a subconscious training level versus to a conscious training level. The base of this art is based on 3 areas, 3 major areas. The body, which is the tai, the kenjutsu, which is the techniques of the sword, and the bojutsu, which are techniques for any length of staffs. Those are the 3 pillars. So we like to refer to these as tools. Anything that you put in our hands, whether it's a sword or a 3-foot staff or a knife, these are extensions of our body. So based on that, it's not the tool or weapon that makes the technique, but it's how you move behind those tools.
Secret Ninja Technique 451. Even when a ninja gets the drop on you, beware, it could be a lure into this nasty move. Things to remember: break the hold with your elbow to the ribs, then hooking the outer arm, throwing your opponent off balance, followed by a smash to the face and then the escape. Even with the calm before the storm, respect for the art exudes from every facet in this dojo. The smell of incense hangs in the air.
Show! Shikin Haramitsu Daikomyo! Right?
Before the mayhem begins, it's time for the warm-ups. Arm rotations, side bends are all done in an orderly fashion, in even, neat rows.
Stretch down to the left. Ichi, ni, san, chi, ho, ro, shish, hachi, kyu, ju.
You guessed it, it's time to dodge the sword. Orlando gives me a personal lesson.
Okay, so the objective is not to look here, but look at me. Now the fast traveling point is here, so you want to look here. So just practice. Go straight down and bring your hands up as you go down. That's it. Okay, just don't look at the staff. Look at me. And try to go straight down. Straight down. Look how fast you're already moving. Go straight down. But no disco dancing. You gotta go straight down, okay? That's it. So the kick will not travel as fast as that. So now I'm gonna come straight down. I want you to step like this and avoid it. Get off the train for this, okay? That's it. And try not to just simply 1, 2, nice and balanced. Get on the ball of your feet. That's it. Yep, that's it.
What kind of ninja class would be complete without more rolling?
So, punch hard. You need to be inside, inside, all the time.
The techniques are fast and deadly. Many students start from a young age. The techniques explained in such a method that even I can pick it up, but they're difficult to master. We continue the lesson, and the class is eager. Here, everyone teaches everyone, and patience is observed.
Go, come on, move.
Time for some Hambo techniques. When you get it done to you, the impact and the moves are complex, but ultimately effective. Time to give this a try.
I want to be here.
Everyone here is here to learn, to absorb all they can to prepare themselves for any threat, imaginary or perhaps very real.
So the first thing you want to do as he punches is evade. Evade. You understand? So you need to evade. But right now, see, I'm working with just my arms. Where I want you to work is with the body. Do you see the difference? So here, you see how I kind of changed my body a little bit? Even though I'm going down, you see it? Slowly. Watch slowly here. 1, watch his throat. 2, watch his groin. Do you see it? So I want to be able to make him think that he's in control when I'm actually in control, even when you're hurt. Okay.
The staff is an extremely effective method of keeping your opponent at a distance. This distance is what can keep you alive.
So he comes in, strike with your body. Strike with your body into the groin. Drive it in there. This you want to bring it high in case he wants to punch. It's very hard to do. So you go in, take him right down. Strike, strike, control strike, always keep the distance, there might be more than one attack.
The next technique displays a mock mugging scenario. For this, you have to be fully committed to the move, because this can be a life or death situation.
Then move my body, right? But I'm moving and striking at the same time. My hands are up, and I'm striking. I step out again, because if he's still reaching for me and swinging, at least I'm coming out.
Hey, what's going on, right? So that, right? So now I can do whatever I want, right?
Secret Ninja Technique 204. Sometimes the odds can be stacked against you, and you have to use your attacker's weapons against them. First, intercept the knife, then kick out the leg, then use the fallen opponent as an obstacle.
What I try to teach are the fundamentals, the foundations of the techniques, but we all become our individual artists. So the opponent becomes a white sheet, a white piece of canvas, very much like the one we have behind us. It is up to the individual to use whatever colors or whatever strokes, whatever movements to paint that picture. And that's how we see the opponent. Now you can totally avoid a hit and be gone, or it may be necessary that you continue with continuous techniques to make sure that the opponent is totally down. When I went to Japan, it was totally different. You had to move very fast, and you had to be able to pick it up quite fast, because I believe that Ninjutsu wasn't meant to be taught as what we know today, traditional way, go to a school and you have certain classes. When Ninjutsu was originated, it was for different motives, for different reasons. The motives that was centuries ago was totally different than what the motives are today. So now we're setting the class more in on an instructional class. So the way I like to teach it is I normally show a technique, and then I let the students learn that specific technique. But after that is I want them to do the variations of that, just as much as I always use the illustration of picking up a rock. The rock does not only have one face, but as you turn it, has many faces. So in the same way, they need to adapt and modify the technique to that specific need. So I like to not separate beginners with seniors, but I like everybody to be involved, because the senior will learn from the junior, because the junior now has different moves that another senior would have. So they all complement each other. I hope that they come away to be a better person, most and foremost, and not to be quick in anger, because it goes against all our principles, and that they're not here to learn the art to be destructive, but to an end result for peace. Well, I pass it to my family, because I consider this art a treasure. And what parent would not love to pass on something that they hold valuable or as a treasure? I've started training my sons as early as the age of 4, and now I have my whole family involved, my other 2 children, and they're going to be a legacy and continue the tradition that I have taught into them. And I try to keep it as closely as I can in the same ways as when I was taught. Show! Shiking, haramitsu, daikomyo.
Well, there you have it. A brutal lesson on precision and footwork. Good class.
My need to find the way of the ninja leads me to the source. In order to understand where you're going, you need to look to your past. And with that in mind, I tracked down the one who brought Ninjutsu to Canada.
The next class I went to was at the Take Dojo, where it's a combination of spirituality and martial arts.
Nestled in the heart of Calgary is an oddity not normally found in the land of cattle and big skies. A fully operational Shinto shrine called the Usagi Jinja, or the Rabbit Shrine. Students observe and take seriously the ceremony and tradition of this spiritual sanctuary. The floors, like in Japan, are cleaned by hand. The class is called to order by gong.
My name is Jay Creasy, and I'm the Kanushi for the Usagi Jinja Shrine. I also teach martial arts at the Take Dojo, which is in the same location. The entertainment media has so exploited what ninjutsu is that it's kind of almost comical. I remember when I got off the train for the first time years ago in Japan, I asked some people how to get to my teacher's house, and they just said, "Oh, haha, that's funny, that guy doesn't really exist," and this kind of thing. And of course, even in Japan today, they look at ninja and ninjutsu as kind of a comical part of their history. But the ripening of ninjutsu is almost 30 years of training now for me, and I'm celebrating this year my 40th year of martial arts training. Interesting that in the tradition or the older styles, you were exposed to a real kaleidoscopic approach to Budo. And what that really meant was that we trained in many different things. We trained in empty-handed skills, we trained in ground fighting skills, we trained in weapon skills. And ninjutsu is one of the major armed martial arts of Japan anyway. So when you're exposed to the old style, you really had to learn kind of everything, or your approach to the training was more holistic and versus where you enter a modern dojo or a modern kind of school, and your exposure is very, very limited to maybe a certain set of skills. Certainly I know I'm getting older, and a lot of my teachers, some of them are dying off now from Japan, and the art itself was kind of this small martial art that was kept behind the walls of monasteries and kept within secrecy. But I think there's a space for it, because there is a collection of people that are really earnestly wanting to know what ninjutsu is from a kind of grassroots level. The understanding that I had what I was exposed to when I was exposed to the martial arts years ago in Japan was that, for the most part, the arts and martial arts were taught to people like monks in monasteries, because they were trying to protect their religious convictions. Not that they were actually going to go out and seek fights necessarily, despite what we see on all the kung fu dramas and samurai dramas and things like that from Japan. My role as a Kanushi at the Usagi Jinja is interesting, because first of all, it kind of went back to the very start of time when I left Canada to go to Japan to train. My father was a lay minister at the time and said to me, "Jay, I know you're interested in the religions and the teachings of the East. I want you to go there and I want you to study everything you can study. Bring back whatever it is you can bring." And so I felt really supported from my father when I went over and started studying, when I was accepted in the dojos in Japan and went over and started studying. I did kind of fall into the understanding of Shinto in the sense that, every traditional dojo there has a kami dana, which is a spirit seat. And bowing to and clapping to a spirit seat for almost the last 30 years, right? And so it was almost a natural transition for me to get drawn to Shinto. When I started to ask questions more about what the Shinto faith was, or the Shinto religion was, it was really appealing to me, because there wasn't necessarily a book or a dogma. Everything was passed off through what they call kuden, or oral traditions and stories and folklore. the most important thing, I think, and I'll use the board for this again, the most important thing that drew me to Shinto was really what the essence of Shinto meant. And so there's two characters that make up the word Shinto, and one is God or spirit, and the other one is way. So this top character means God or spirit, and then Do meaning path or way. And so it changes the character Do changes slightly to To after you follow it by this character to Shinto. So quite literally, the spirit in all things way. Kakemaku mo kashikoki usagi jinju no okami. Kyou no yoki satsuei ni attatte on hagemashi to sasae o tamawari tomo to kashikomi momosu.
Time to stretch it out and get it started. This seems to be a recurring theme this rolling. This time we apply it to a practical application. There's no better way to increase your reaction time than by adding a real spear to the mix. This class, like others, begin with theory and examples you may be familiar with.
How is it precise? How is it timing? How is it, how do the rhythms work together? You get this one right, every other beat could be just a little bit off. It's kind of like a song. If it starts on the wrong beat, sometimes it's hard to pull it back together. So we need to have this boom very, very quickly because that's the initial attack. And usually it'll be something like this. They grab and one of them, right?
Senior students also participate in the instruction. The moves are precise and deadly, capitalizing on the mechanics of the human body, using them to your advantage. Your joints and limbs have a natural motion, and when that motion is hindered or your center of gravity is altered, the effect can seem like magic, ninja magic.
Pass it underneath. And pass it to your other hand. Yeah.
Sooner or later, the knives are bound to come out, and as per usual, the main arteries become the target.
I don't have it. Guide it all the way down and then come up. Coming in.
Brutal, deadly, precise. And if you come at a ninja, you're gonna pay for it.
Don't waste it. It's all movement.
Okay. The class absorbs the techniques to add to their personal arsenals. Secret Ninja Technique 325. Empty-handed combat can be as deadly as any weapon. The first strike is countered with a nerve strike to the inner arm, followed by 2 chops. A shot to the ribs to break down your opponent, snake the arm under the chin while sweeping the leg, and a final strike.
When I was exposed to the martial arts of Japan, when I first went there and trained in the martial arts, what I discovered was that there was a definitive approach to the warrior arts in what was called the atarashi, or the modern styles, and the koryu, or the old styles. Well, the ninjutsu, as I was exposed to it, was and still is, for the most part, a koryu. As it expands through the last almost 30 years, I've seen a change in it myself. What's interesting about it, again, when I was exposed to it, I saw, one day we might be working with a stick, and another day we might be working with a knife and a sword and an empty-handed, long fist, short fist, groundwork, running through the bushes, climbing trees, going through obstacle courses, and all of these different aspects of the training art were often titled a jutsu, or a field of study, a field of training. And that's really what jutsu is. Like for instance, Tanto Jitsu, knife fighting skills, is the field of study knife. Bojitsu is the field of study stick. And the old practitioners of the martial arts had to be well versed in many fields of study. This field of study, these things were often called arts. So Jitsu was translated to an art. So exactly right. The origination of the martial arts, you know, you go back 400 or 500 years. Those soldiers on the battlefield then were far more versed in the kaleidoscope of arts than people are today. Instead, we saw a division, a modern insurgence of the Atarashi schools, and that's where the Do styles came from, like Karate Do, Taekwondo, Aikido, Hapkido. And so they got definitive to certain aspects of training, and what happened was the well-rounded martial artist was not necessarily created anymore. So the modern insurgence was, well, these guys are just going to throw everything in the same pot, they're going to mix them all up and see what they get. And of course today, some of the mixed martial artists are amazing athletes, and they're fantastic at their fighting game, standing up, sitting down, that kind of thing, whatever it is, laying on the floor. The difficulty again is it's become kind of a mixed martial art, but still a little unmixed in the sense that there's no weapons in the ring, there's no ring. I mean, take the ring away. These kinds of things are some of the difficulties in the modern martial arts that we're seeing now. In a sense, if you bring all the does together, you'll get that melting pot again of martial abilities that was really the origination of the Budoka, or the warrior, or the practitioner of the martial arts.
One of the final tests in the class is a gauntlet that requires you to recall all the information that you learned in the class as a review.
I think that notion of plugging in, for me, is kind of like likening the dojo, or the place to learn the way, which is what dojo means, to a pit stop like a race car driver would take. When he's gone around the laps of the track a few times, he might be burning the rubber on his tires down, or his engine might be getting low on oil or some such thing, and he goes into the pits to take a pit stop. The dojo is kind of like that. It's a place where we can plug in to the energies of what the essence of Bu means, what the essence of stopping the spear means, what the essence of becoming the gentleman is all about. And learning the fundamental aspects of what this is to be an awake person, if you like. Also, even on the pillows that we're sitting on now, there's a circle painted on the pillows, which really is a definitive expression of bringing yourself back to zero, so that you can go left, or you can go right, you can go up, or you can go down, but you stay neutral, you stay balanced. And I guess for me personally is to have people evolve from training with a sense of right adjustment, an ability to recognize when and when not to, a sense of balance, and a sense of knowing their surroundings and their environment.
The class, like a ninja's attack, ends as it began, in silence.
As you can see, it's a grueling workout. It's a workout for your mind, it's a workout for your soul, and I'm feeling much more enriched because of it. So we'll just keep walking the path and see where it takes us.
Secret Ninja Technique 183. Fast, efficient striking, a ninja's best friend. Capture the fist, deflect the kick, a quick nerve punch, a chop to soften them up, a hand lock to the ground, then a stomp. Sensei Jay invited me for some tea to discuss the finer points of this art.
The blocks that seem to be sometimes created in our lives, the Budoka, or the Budo, has always taught me that there's a way through anything, a way through everything. And I learned that in ninjutsu in the sense that there was an expression that meant the way of the escaping rat, where if the rat is determined, you cannot hold it. It will escape. Sometimes people put, in Japan, old Japan, they would put a rat in a box and the next day it was gone. They had no idea how it was gone. And so it was kind of soto tonko no kata. It was a magical thing. From that same notion, Ishi no ue nimo sannen was created. The rolling stone gathers no moss, because the rat keeps rolling. It's not just coincidental that the rat is the first animal in the 12 animal cycle, because all the other animals get that the notion of the rat is very, very powerful. Bu, the character, the martial arts word for bu, and it's kind of made up of two lesser characters, which is kind of interesting. The bottom portion of the character literally means stop, whilst the top portion of the character means spear. So in essence, we learn to stop the spear in the Budo. Interestingly enough, we have to learn how to work with the spear before we learn to stop it. It's kind of like picking up a gun. It's always good to have gun safety course so you know where the safety is and where the bullets go and which is the pointy end and which is the dull end, right, of the gun. This is kind of like learning the sharp end of the spear and the not so sharp end of the spear, and kind of having that understanding of knowing when it's appropriate to respond and when it isn't appropriate to respond. So I think that more than anything in the modern man could benefit from that kind of thing. And the Budo, this is the character for Bu, as in Budo, it delineates that to the people that are training. Our movement then is based on directions. So, for instance, if you take a look at that, it looks much like a plus symbol, right? Now, if I shift that slightly, like this, it'll look a little bit more like a time symbol, wouldn't it? But if I impose or superimpose both characters on one, then what I have is what's known as the happo or the hachipo, or the law of 8. But this is also the angular movement that we use in our range of motion, or our movement towards and away from an attacker. As an example, if the red stick was the line of my attacker, and I chose to take the brown stick as my line of defense, I could effectively thwart the attack because I would be out of the way of it. If I just use this angle, the back angle as an example, this different color red stick, I could, again, if he came along this red line with a punch or a kick or a knife thrust or a sword blow, I could deflect the attack once again to set up or disappear in the sight of the attack and then counter along his weak line or her weak line, whoever the attacker was. We again say that the attacker is attacking along this line, and I choose to take maybe one of these lines away from the attack angle. Then when I've done that, I have employed part of the sacred geometry that the happo is. Now, granted, this opponent can easily redirect, and he can come along this line. So we need to counter again off that line, and so on and so forth, and create fluidity in our retraction from the attack. So quite literally, ninjutsu almost masters at this, at disappearing in the sight of the attacker. Again, that's the way I was exposed to it. Before I went to Japan, my nickname was Chainsaw, because I'd studied some of the do styles here in karate and taekwondo and hapkido. And when I came in on somebody, I came in with this straight line and I was going through no matter what. When I got to Japan, I found myself at the corner of the tatami, the corner of the dojos there, crying in tears half the time because it wouldn't work. All these little guys would get out of the way of my attack. It was so simple. They would just, hey, I don't want to get hit by you, I'm moving. They were employing the happo, part of the sacred geometry. I think that's why I recognized in you so quickly that there was a bujutsuka or a budoka within you. You know, being a warrior and not necessarily knowing it. It seems like what happens after almost 40 years now of training in this, the martial arts, that there is a certain sense of being able to read your surroundings, i.e. getting more aware of your surroundings as well. They're becoming more aware of them. And so you can kind of sense in people when they have that groundedness or that sense of also being aware. And yeah, it does feel like you arrive at an enhanced sense of awareness, and certainly an enhanced sense of understanding what the Budoka spirit is.
I was once told your technique and skill will only improve by spending time on the mat. Too much of a good thing can seem like torture. But he also told me you only master your moves by putting the miles on your technique. And finally, things start to come together.
It's not about technique at that point. It's all of a sudden you're in this scrum, you're in this fight, and your response is from your heart. It's not from your head, right?
Yeah, that didn't come from my head.
I know.
Wow.
Now the Satan Ninjas have asked me back to run their gauntlet, and I'm going to take them on it.
From me and John? That's terrible. WWF?
Some people are more interested in just the modern approach to the fighting arts, and you know, that's perfectly fine. It feels like as long as there's people with the kind of drive to learn Budo or the martial way from a grassroots level or from a foundational level, then the old styles maybe still have a foothold.
We're almost a little bit transcending art in a way where it's not just physical, it's a lot of mental as well, right? So it's even on a one person to one person situation, like where he's coming to attack you, you have to mentally analyze like how far away he is and what type of movement he's doing, and then what he knows, so that you can take apart what he knows.
I think that in a way, if we all practice this patience and endurance, maybe we could live in a little bit more of a peaceful world, because this is what we're trying to produce. We're trying to produce somebody who is a little bit more patient, has a chance to look things in a different way. So do we have a place in the modern world? Definitely, if not more now than ever.
The modern world may have no need for the ninja. But if that's true, why is it you can still find them if you look hard enough?
Well, I'm like, it's natural if you guys are talking in the background, because there. Some shadow warrior is not even quiet. Yeah. We got boogies hanging out?
Absolutely.
Yes. Boogie-tastic.
Okay, good.
And there you have it, the Calgary born. I said all that at the beginning. I'm just gonna tighten it up. 3, 2, 1.